and they stopped it. Round one, knockout, Jake Paul El Gallo de Dorado.
Another first-round stoppage for the problem child. He told us round two, but he delivered it 1 round earlier. Outstanding performance from Jake Paul.
Now Jake set that up with some good offense, jabbing up top, jabbing to the body. That was a perfect setup, man. He had good...
Jake Paul vs. Mike Tyson. On Netflix. If someone had said that sentence out loud a few years ago, it would have sounded like a joke, a weird fan theory, or maybe a satirical post floating around the internet. But somehow, here we are in 2024, living in a world where that exact matchup not only exists but has unfolded on one of the largest streaming platforms in the world. It's not just surprising, it's mind-bending. A YouTube star, known initially for pranks and vlogs, has managed to climb the ranks of boxing, not through tradition, but through sheer visibility, marketing genius, and determination. On the other side of the ring? One of the most iconic, feared, and respected names in the history of combat sports. Mike Tyson. A man whose name still echoes in the boxing world like a thunderclap. And this isn't just a spectacle, it's a full-on cultural moment, a bizarre yet fascinating collision of old-school greatness and new age fame. Welcome to the fight you never saw coming, and now can't stop thinking about.
Event of the evening, an 8-round test in the cruiserweight. Let's get ready to rumble!
The fight was originally set for a grand premiere on November 15. Fans had marked their calendars, ready for what was expected to be one of the most talked-about sporting events of the year. But in classic Netflix fashion, plans changed, dramatically. Out of nowhere, the streaming giant dropped the match early, shaking up not just viewers but the entire internet. It was a surprise release that felt more like a plot twist in a blockbuster than a boxing event. No warning, no countdown, no trailers filled with dramatic narration, just a raw, explosive moment suddenly available for the world to witness. And with Jake Paul involved, a personality who thrives on unpredictability, maybe this move made perfect sense. In a way, the early release reflected the very nature of the fight, unexpected, dramatic, and impossible to ignore.
On the planet, KO punchers of all times, the 2-time heavyweight world champion of the world, Iron Mike Tyson.
Let's clear something up before we go any further. This isn't some teaser campaign. This isn't another trailer promising an epic showdown months from now. The fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson has already happened. Yes, already. Not in a few weeks. Not coming soon. It went down at AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas, and fans who witnessed it firsthand are still trying to process what they saw. From the moment the fighters walked into the arena, it was clear this wasn't just a gimmick. It was a real clash, gloves on, rules in place, and reputations on the line. If you missed it, don't worry. We've got the full breakdown. But be warned, this wasn't a tame exhibition. This was real, raw, and unforgettable.
The anticipated fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson has a new date. They'll face off in AT&T Stadium on November.
Although Netflix plans to broadcast the fight globally in the coming weeks, complete with highlights, behind-the-scenes interviews, and expert commentary, those who saw it early know that no amount of editing or production polish can fully capture the electricity of what happened in that ring. Right now, you're ahead of the curve. Before the internet turns it into memes, hot takes, and endless debates, you get to experience the fight as it was, moment by moment, with all the drama, tension, and power that made it a night to remember. Think of this as your exclusive preview into a sports event that may go down as one of the wildest, most unexpected nights in boxing history. Let's talk about the build-up. The anticipation for this fight wasn't just huge, it was global. Everywhere you turned, someone had an opinion. Was Jake Paul seriously ready for a living legend? Could Mike Tyson still bring the thunder after all these years? Sports channels debated it endlessly. Social media exploded with predictions, memes, and countdowns. Jake Paul, the influencer-turned-boxer, played his part to perfection, walking into press conferences full of swagger, running his mouth, building the kind of tension you either loved or loved to hate. And then there was Mike Tyson, no words needed. Just his presence alone spoke volumes. At 58, Tyson walked in with that calm, focused stare that has frozen many fighters in their tracks over the years. This was the ultimate contrast: Jake, loud and flashy, representing the digital generation, and Tyson, silent but powerful, representing the raw, gritty legacy of boxing's golden age. Two different worlds. One shared ring. And the entire sports world watching. Now, hearing that Mike Tyson fought at 58 is one thing, seeing him walk into the arena is something else entirely. It was like watching time itself hesitate. The air shifted. The noise changed. And suddenly, it felt like everyone remembered exactly who Mike Tyson is. His physique was still carved, almost mythic, like he hadn't aged a day since the 90s. His presence alone carried the weight of history. Muscles defined, movements precise, it was as if nature had decided that Tyson didn't have to play by the normal rules of aging. As he stepped into the ring, there was no mistaking it, this was still Iron Mike. No longer the wild, unpredictable force of his youth, but something even more dangerous. Focused. Refined. And ready.
That. And when you're
This wasn't a comeback built on nostalgia. Tyson didn't just roll in with old highlights and a famous name. He trained. He prepared. And by all accounts, he trained harder than most men half his age. From advanced high-tech gym routines to raw old-school sparring sessions, Tyson was sharpening every weapon in his arsenal. Videos from his training camp showed him moving with shocking speed and precision. Veteran coaches, men who've seen decades of fighters come and go, were left speechless by his discipline and drive. This wasn't just preparation. It was obsession. It was as if Tyson had something to prove, not to the crowd, not even to Jake, but to himself.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Yo.
Now, contrast that with Jake Paul. While Tyson was in full-on warrior mode, Jake was still living in his influencer lane, creating content, running media stunts, stirring headlines, and keeping his followers entertained. That's not to say he wasn't training, he was. Jake's team had him working hard, and the transformation he's undergone as a fighter is nothing to ignore. But the intensity, the mindset, the sheer grit, it was clear Tyson was preparing for war. While Jake brought youth, reach, and speed, Tyson brought something Jake couldn't mimic with drills or branding, a lifetime in the ring. This wasn't about being shredded or lean. It was about the ability to end a fight with one perfectly placed punch. And Mike still had it.
July 20th. It would likely be on had they not put out the fake press release in the first place. When they put out this watered down, dumb press release.
There were whispers, among trainers, fighters, commentators, that this version of Mike Tyson might be even more dangerous than before. Not because he was stronger or faster, but because he was smarter. More calculated. More disciplined. His punches weren't just powerful, they were surgical. Controlled. Ruthless. You could see it in his footwork, in his guard, in the quiet intensity of his focus. And his mindset? That was perhaps the most formidable part. Gone was the reckless fury of youth. In its place was something cooler, quieter, but far more threatening, a man who knew what needed to be done, and exactly how to do it. Jake and his camp had trained for a fight. Tyson had prepared for a finish.
And his opponent across the ring, fighting out of the red corner, wearing 83.6 pounds.
And then the moment arrived. The fighters stood across from each other, and you could feel it, the electricity, the weight of the spectacle. Jake Paul entered the ring like he owned it, confidence in every step, fists twitching with energy. He bounced on his toes, eyes sharp, knowing he had something to prove. And early on, he did. The bell rang, and Jake came out fast, sharp jabs, quick feet, smart movement. You could tell he'd trained for this. He was trying to outpace Tyson, to frustrate him, to outwork him from the outside, and for a brief moment, it seemed like he might have a real strategy. The crowd roared with every punch he landed. But across from him stood a man who had seen it all before. Tyson didn't rush. He didn't flinch. He waited. Watching. Studying. Like a storm on the horizon, building strength.
Hey!
10 days, baby. 10 days.
Tyson's eyes told the real story. If you've ever watched him in his prime, you know that look, the one that comes just before something devastating happens. Round 2 began, and the energy shifted. Jake still moved quickly, still threw with purpose. But Tyson had seen enough. He stepped forward with poise, his timing perfect. Then came that punch, a devastating left hook that seemed to shake the stadium itself. The sound, the impact, the reaction, all unforgettable. Jake Paul's knees buckled, his expression shifted from confidence to realization. He had just felt what it meant to stand across from a living legend. And Tyson? He didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He advanced, calm and focused, sensing the beginning of the end.
Child. He told us round 2, but he delivered it 1 round earlier. Outstanding performance from Jake Paul.
Man, Jake set that up with some good offense, jabbing up top, jabbing to the body.
The experts had warned us. Analysts, former champions, trainers, they all said this wouldn't be as close as some believed. People like Joe Rogan, who've spent years dissecting fights and fighters, had looked at Tyson's training footage and knew exactly what Jake was walking into. That power is still there, Rogan had said. That danger hasn't left. Others echoed the sentiment. To fans, it was hype. To the insiders, it was just reality. Tyson wasn't stepping into the ring for nostalgia. He was stepping in to compete. And anyone who truly understood the sport knew what that meant.
But Jake Paul's used to just running his dick sucker consequence-free all across the internet, but there's certain lines that you do not cross.
He was like 16 years old on YouTube, and you just saw him box.
Joe Rogan had broken it down piece by piece, Tyson's form, his speed, his mental sharpness. He may be older, Rogan said, but he's not done. Former UFC champ Michael Bisping agreed. Jake's young, sure. But you're putting him against someone who's been fighting killers for decades. Bisping pointed out how Tyson's head movement, that iconic slipping and weaving, hadn't faded. If anything, it was sharper, more efficient. And they weren't the only ones. Dozens of respected voices in the combat world predicted exactly what would unfold. Not out of bias. Not out of nostalgia, out of cold, professional observation. And when the dust settled, when the gloves were off, those predictions were validated. Jake Paul had stepped into the ring with a true legend, and found out what that really meant.